Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a bit of a review on different hair dye brands that I have tried. So I've used a few different brands in the past. I mainly used either Manic Panic or Directions, but in the past I've also used Crazy Colour, Arctic Fox and the Schwarzkopf XXL Live range. And I've used a few different colours for these brands. For Arctic Fox I've only used the one colour, which I think was Cotton Candy Pink. For Directions I've used, what ones have I even used? Was it Midnight Blue, Flamingo Pink, Manic Panic's Hot Pink. I've used like mainly pink ones, to be honest with you, but I've used like for the Schwarzkopf Live range I've used the turquoise blue, one of the purple colours, the pinks. I've used a few of the different ranges, so I feel like I've got enough hair dye brands under my belt that I can kind of review the ones that I think work best. The main dyes that I do use are Directions and Manic Panic, although there still are pros and cons to both of them, and I kind of swap between the two just depending on different things, but I'll get into that later. I actually have been planning to do this video for, not even joking, about 2 years, and I did save all of the old hair dye bottles that I had for the purpose of making this video, but I never made my channel in time, and eventually I thought I'm never going to make this video, so I just chucked all the bottles away. And then typically as soon as like I do that, I'm deciding actually I'm going to make my YouTube channel now. So I don't have the bottles to physically show you anymore, which is a bit of a shame, but I'll insert like pictures of the bottles, and if I could find them, I don't know if I will be able to find them, but if I could find pictures of my hair using that dye, then I will certainly add that in. But honestly, I don't quite know, like I don't take note of what brands I use and when. It's just what I get. I know for some of the brands like there's certain colours I have used, and I know that for a fact, but again I don't particularly know by picture what brand I've used. The first brand I'm going to go in with is Crazy Colour. So I used the colour Cyclamen, I think it's pronounced, and it's this really nice neon like pink colour. It's like neon but a deep pink at the same time, like it's bright but it's deep, and it's really hard to describe it. But for me that was honestly like the perfect pink shade and I loved it so much. I used that the first time I went fully pink, and then I used it when I did my like I had like a dip dye sort of pink going on, and that's the main one that I used because it was easy for me to get and it was fairly cheap. I can't remember the exact prices of all of these, so I will put them on the screen as well. Crazy Colour, like it was fairly reasonably priced. You get a decent amount in the bottle, and you can also mix it in with concealer. No, you can also mix it in with conditioner, and that gives you like a really nice, like you can customize the colour. I didn't do that because I personally like to get the colour that's in the bottle onto my head, so I don't typically tend to dilute my hair dyes unless I'm kind of running a bit low. But there are like certain benefits of diluting your hair dye. It kind of reduces a bit of staining because there's less pigment in there and things like that, which would be really good for Crazy Colour, at least in that shade, because for me the Cyclamen colour stained like no one's business. So I would use that, and I would stain my husband's, then boyfriend's, arm when we were cuddling. My pillows were always pink. My clothing, even if it was like darker clothing, still had like the pink staining around the back of the neck and like kind of along the fronts. I could not wear white when I had that in my hair. It stained my hands constantly, like my nails are always stained pink, like because I've done it about 15 times in this video already, but like I always run my fingers through my hair, putting your hair up, brushing it, things like that. It would stain literally everything, to my hands, my arms when I'm lying in bed. Like it was such a pain, and although it was such a lovely colour, it just stained. And a lot of dyes do that for like the first like week or so, like when you kind of wash it out once or twice and that stops it from staining. But this stuff would stain from the second you open the bottle to the second, like until it completely rinses out of your hair. Like it stained for weeks on end. And I would maybe top up my dye every month or so, maybe every 4 to 5 weeks, and it would stain consistently all throughout that time. So although the colour was good and the price was fairly reasonable and not quite low, for me that dye isn't worth it because of the staining that you get. That is just the pink shade though. I don't know about any other shades. I know that pinks can stain quite a bit, blues can stain quite a lot as well. but I don't know about any other colours, so I can't really say like every single colour from that brand stains like a bitch, so don't buy it. I'm just saying that that one shade does stain a lot. One time in particular, I washed my hair out and it had run basically like as it was drying, and like I let it air dry. The colour had gone down my neck and down my back quite a lot. It stained my ears and everything, and it would just come out. And actually, that dye in particular, when I worked at McDonald's, when I had this dip dye sort of thing going on, whenever I sweat, because it gets hot in the kitchen, the pink dye would run down my face. So people would always say like, oh, your face is really red, like do you need some water, like are you overworked, like what's going on, like are you really dehydrated? And I was like, no, I'm fine, like I don't even feel warm, I'm whatever. And it wasn't until I like wiped the sweat off my face with like a paper towel that I'd see all the pink come off on the paper towel, and I'd be like, it's my hair dye that is running down my face. So that wasn't that great, but again, like I said, if you did dilute it, it might be fine. I also dabble in the Schwarzkopf XXL Live colours quite a lot. So I just use the standard pink colour. I don't think they really have like fancy names, but just a standard pink shade. I've used that quite a lot in the past. When I first had like a colour in my hair, I did like an underneath shade. So I did like a really small like section underneath my head for like a undercolour sort of thing. And I actually used the purple shade for that first because I didn't want to go straight in with pink because I didn't know how that would look. So I used the purple shade for that, and honestly that was fine. Like I didn't notice a lot of staining for that. It was fairly easy to apply, but those dyes are quite thick. Like they're literally like a paste. They're not really like a liquid dye. So you do need to mix them in with conditioner, and they always come with like 2 sachets of conditioner anyway. Or 1 sachet, or is it 2? I think it's 2. So I always just use those sachets to mix it up to make it a little bit thinner, but it is still very thick. But they're very easy to apply. They have a lot of pigment to them. The only thing that I've heard, and I don't know how true this is that Schwarzkopf dyes have a lot of salt in them, or some sort of like, what is salt? Like what's the chemical compound of salt? It's not potassium, that's bananas. You know what I mean? Like it's got that sort of chemical that salt's kind of made out of, which can dehydrate your hair, and because you've already, the majority of times you've already bleached it, which would dehydrate your hair, and then you add in the dye, it could dehydrate your hair. But more importantly, from what I've heard about some Schwarzkopf dyes or some experiences with Schwarzkopf, is that if you then put bleach over top, so if you're doing a roots or whatever, if that's my phone by the way, if that overlaps with the colour, it can actually kind of have some sort of chemical reaction. Sodium, that's it. It can have some sort of chemical reaction, and it can actually like fry your hair a bit quicker. I personally didn't notice that on myself, but when I've done like my sister's hair, for example, she always used those colours with Schwarzkopf. And when I'd like re-bleach her roots, because she has very short hair, I would just do like her full hair. Wow. I would just like bleach her full head, like focus on her roots and then just go all across and lighten the colour right out. It does lighten very quickly. But on one occasion I think it did come out a little bit like almost to the point where it was like gonna, the ends were like slightly frizzly, frazzled, like sort of thing. I was cutting the hair anyway, so it wasn't an issue, but I've never really noticed it on myself, but that's just what I've heard, that it can fry off your hair if you bleach over top of that. But yeah, actually that stuff does lift out very easily, and I did notice that. Just be careful if you are going to do it. A simple bleach bath would be fine, I think. So yeah, I do quite like those dyes, and they are quite cheap. I think they're like £6–7 a box. And again, depending on how much you're doing, it should be okay. With my hair kind of this length, I do tend to buy 2 boxes, but that's because I don't use a lot of conditioner in it, and that's always going to take up a lot more of the actual dye. I should probably do some sort of numbering system, shouldn't I? Like a rating. So for Crazy Colour, let's go back. For Crazy Colour, I'm going to give it a 7 for price, for value. I'm going to give it a 9 for the colour that I used, because that colour was absolutely beautiful. I would give it a 10, but not everything's perfect. So a 9 for the colour. For longevity, I don't remember it lasting that long. It was kind of the colour that would fade a bit when it's in the direct sun. Some colours do that, which is fair enough, but I'd always notice that my top would fade a lot quicker, and the underneath would still be very like pigmented. So when I have my dip dye, like on the outer parts of my hair it would fade a lot, but like right underneath the back of my neck would always be really bright. So for longevity, I'd give it maybe about a 5. For staining, I'm gonna say like it was a 10 for staining. So a 10 is like it stains a lot, and 1 is like it didn't really stain at all. I'm gonna give it a 10 for staining because it was quite bad. For the Schwarzkopf, I'm gonna give it maybe a 6 for value, like for price, because it is fairly pricey for what you get, but then depending on how much of your hair you actually dye and how much conditioner you use, however many boxes you might need might vary. So about 6 for, did I say 6 or 7? Whatever I said, it'll be on the screen. For value. For the colour, I actually really like the colours that I've tried. I mean, I've used a purple, a pink and like a light blue, and I liked all the colours. I think they come out pretty much exactly as they look on the box. So for the colour, I'm going to give it, I'd say about a 9 as well. Longevity, I actually noticed that a lot of the colours lasted a long time. I mean, they either don't last a long time but they fade nicely, or they do last a long time and they like eventually just gradually fade, whatever. But I actually think they last quite a long time. I think because they are a bit more on the chemically side than like other dyes that I use that are like vegan brand dyes. They last quite a while, and I don't normally have to top them up. I could normally go like a solid 5 to 6 weeks and I just re-dye them because my roots are coming through, or just because my hair's looking a little bit more tired. So I don't typically have to redo it. And then whenever I do dye it over, I notice that the colour has faded quite a bit, but it fades to such a nice even colour, for me anyway, that I don't mind that. So for longevity, I want to give it a 7, but I also want to give it an 8. I'm going to give it a 7.5 for the longevity, because it is pretty good. And actually I think the non-permanent colours last nicer and longer than some of the permanent colours. That's the tea. And for staining, I notice a little bit of staining, not too much for that, nowhere near as much as the Crazy Colour dye, but they do still have some staining to them. So I'll maybe give them like a 6 for staining, because they do stain a little bit, but honestly not that much. I think most bright coloured hair dyes will stain to some degree, but yeah, I don't think they stained too much from what I remember. The next brand that I've used is Arctic Fox, and I have a bit of a story with this one. So I didn't know when I ordered this that Arctic Fox were predominantly a US brand. I thought they're kind of like, I mean they are international, but I thought they would have like different places in, like different warehouses in different places, so I didn't know they were predominantly US based. And at the time as well, I didn't know that they had an Amazon like page, like an official Arctic Fox Amazon page. So I ordered directly off the Arctic Fox website, and I ordered this late November to early December. I think it might have been either the 30th of November or the 1st of December, somewhere around there that I ordered this dye. And I thought it's a bit pricey, and the delivery cost was quite a bit as well. I think it was almost the same in delivery as it was for the bottle of hair dye, or something similar to that. I can't entirely remember. If I could find my old order confirmation email, then I'll kick to my camera. Then I'll put it on the screen as well, like how much exactly that cost me for delivery as well, because all these other dyes I've been able to just get like in a shop so far. This one took me a long time to get, and I work in customer services. I work for an online fashion brand myself, and we also ship internationally. So I know kind of typically how long it should take for things to get from the UK to the US and vice versa. Like I know it can take a while, but when you're using certain couriers, it shouldn't take too long. It should maybe take like 2 weeks depending on whatever. And I'm pretty sure their delivery time scale was 14 business days, which really translates to 21 days if you take out the weekends. And also it's around Christmas time, so public holidays and things like that. I understood that, and I also knew it would be a little bit busier. But I thought, right, I'm ordering it early enough, it should still come in time for Christmas, because my hair, I don't want to dye my hair again, because I wanted to use that dye, and I didn't want to go out and buy more dye because I already spent a lot of money on the Arctic Fox dye. So I was like, I'm just going to leave it, and it actually got to the point where it took so long. My pink dip dyed hair, and I do have a picture of this, it faded to almost yellow with some green in it from like old blue that I had, and it was like not even pink anymore. It literally was not pink anymore. And I remember the day that I went out to Edinburgh and I actually put green eyeshadow underneath my eyes because my hair just looked more green than pink at that point. And it just took so long to get here, and I was emailing the customer services, like I waited the full delivery time scale because I know how annoying it can be for customers to email you and be like, where's my stuff, and they haven't even waited the full delivery time scale. So I waited the full delivery time scale, and from what I saw, it hadn't even left the US yet, but again, it's around Christmas time, whatever. And they said, oh yeah, it's still coming. Here's a tracking number for Royal Mail. And I was like, this tracking number doesn't work. What's going on? And they're like, oh well, it should be here soon, just please allow longer. And I was like, right, okay, I'll wait longer. So I left it about a week and it still didn't arrive, and I've still checked my Royal Mail thing. And a friend of mine had also ordered the exact same day for her hair dye, and her tracking was like 2 days ahead of mine each time. So I was like, right, well hers is saying it's in the UK now. I'm gonna wait 2 more days and see if it updates for me as well, because it seemed to have that same pattern. Like every time she got an update, 2 days later I'd get an update. So I left it, I think maybe more than 2 days, maybe 3 or 4 days. Nothing changed for me, so I emailed them again and said, look, what's going on? And they said it shouldn't be longer, please allow longer. And I was like, oh, for God's sake. And at this point I think it'd already passed Christmas, and I was like, I've already had to go out and buy more dye because I wanted pink hair for Christmas. So I was like a little bit annoyed, and I thought at this point it's not even worth it. It's really not worth the delivery time and the cost. I didn't particularly care at this point. And that's when I found out you can get it on Amazon. And I was like, well, I'm not going to order more because I can't afford to order more. It's just been Christmas and I don't have like the highest paying job. And at the time I think I was only like 19, 20. So I didn't even have like 21 wage, yeah, that. So I was like, right, whatever. And I think it ended up taking about 38 days, if I remember rightly. It might not, but I think it took about 38 days, which is a lot longer than the 21 days to 14 business day time scale. So I was like, right, okay, I'm not ordering off their website again just because of that, because it took so long. But it finally came and I was like, yes, I can't wait to use this, fab. But I had to wait for the pink dye that I'd used in the meantime, which was the Schwarzkopf dye, to fade out a bit more, which took forever to do. When I used the dye from Arctic Fox together, like on its own, from what I know is obviously they have an Arctic Mist diluter, which you can put in with your normal dye to make it a little bit lighter. It's like conditioner, but it's like their own brand, and apparently it works best. But from what I remember, I think they actually already put the diluter in with the pigment. So when I was putting this dye on, it was almost like it was already mixing with conditioner, but loads of conditioner. So when I was putting the dye on my head, I could see like the white of the diluter, or like the conditioner part of it, whatever, come through. And it actually looked like I wasn't really putting any dye on my head. And I was like, what is this? And it was quite a light colour as well. So I thought, is this even going to properly cover up my hair? You know, like I was thinking, is this going to be enough to do me? So I put it on. I always leave my hair dye on as long as possible for when it's like the more natural brands, and Arctic Fox, what I know, are vegan. So I left it on for about 2 hours just to try and give it as much time to like properly work as possible. I washed it out and it was a bit lighter than what I wanted, honestly. I like to have more of a hot pink, and that was more of like a softer pink, like not pastel, but kind of. So the colour wasn't really for me, and honestly when it took that long and it cost that much money, it wasn't worth it for me. But other colours might be better, I don't know. It did last a fair while, I give it that. I think it lasted about 6 weeks before I had to dye over it again. But to me that just wasn't really worth it. So for Arctic Fox, for the value, I don't think it's really worth it. You can get like smaller bottles or bigger bottles, but even then I don't really think it's worth it. You can get hair dyes that, in my opinion, that are better pigment and that are like, I don't know, just generally better. You can get them more local for a much cheaper price. So for value, I'm going to give it like a 3. I don't think it's very good value for money. I see people use Arctic Fox to do their rainbow hair looks, and I'm thinking that hair colour has probably cost you about $100, and that's not worth it in my opinion. I'd rather just spend like a $5 per tub of a cheaper hair dye brand and do it a few times over, because that still probably costs less than buying all the colours with Arctic Fox. So value, about a 3. I don't think it's really worth the value. The colour, again, it wasn't really for me. It was a nice colour, but I feel like it was lighter than advertised. I had watched a few different reviews and some of them turned out kind of what I was expecting it to be, and some of them didn't. And remember, I didn't dilute mine at all, so I was like a bit disappointed by the colour. So for the colour, I'm going to give it maybe a 5. It was a nice colour, but just not what I was going for. Longevity, it did last a long time, and I will give it that. So I'm going to give it like an 8 on the longevity scale. Other colours might last a bit longer or less long, it just depends on what shade you're using, but for the one that I personally used, it did last pretty well, and I did notice that, and you know, it faded out quite nice as well, so. And finally, for staining, I don't think I remember any staining, and I think a big part of that is because they put the diluter, like the Arctic Mist diluter, in with the product, so it's already kind of diluted. So I didn't notice really any staining for that, so I think I'm gonna have to give that like maybe a 2 or a 3 on the staining, because I don't remember it staining really at all, and I do keep my eye out on things like that. So yeah, I think I have to do that, about 2 or a 3 for staining. The next brand I want to talk about is one that I do use quite often, and that is Manic Panic. Manic Panic, a bit like Arctic Fox, is vegan, completely cruelty free, it's very natural. I think technically you could eat it if you wanted to, but I wouldn't really recommend it, because when I've tried opening in the pots and I can't do it with my nails, I do it with my teeth and it gets in my mouth and it's not very nice tasting, so I don't eat the hair dye. But it is a brand that I use quite a lot. They are fairly cheap-ish, I think, for what you get. They're like reasonable. The colours that I've tried, I've used a few in the past. I think I've used some blues, I've used some reds, and pinks obviously, and you can get the Manic Panic normal tubs, which should look like this, or you can get the Manic Panic amplified tubs that look like this. So you can get 2 different types of dye. I think the idea behind the amplified ones is that they last a bit longer, and I've tried the amplified ones, but honestly I didn't really notice much of a difference, so I'd maybe just say go for the normal one, because the amplified ones are a little bit more expensive. I kind of feel bad now because I've just gone on a rant about how much I don't really like Arctic Fox and my issues with delivery and things like that, and then with the other dyes I'm just like, and they're alright, I like them. Like, I don't really have anything else to say. That's just, I haven't had any other experiences like that with Manic Panic or like any of the other dyes. Manic Panic, you can't typically get these in shops, you can only really get them online. Some tattoo shops might sell them, or like alternative shops or something like that might sell the tubs of dye, but I've personally never seen a shop that sells Manic Panic. The tattoo shop I go to sells directions, like lyric directions, but they don't sell Manic Panic, so it's harder to get your hands on that. You do have to normally order it online. I believe they have a website, but I've never used it. I typically tend to order it either off eBay or Amazon. You can get it off Blue Banana, I know. I think you can get it off Killstar. Don't quote me on that. I've never actually bought it off Killstar before, but some brands you can get Manic Panic off. I think maybe Sally's as well. I'm not entirely sure what you can get it off, but you can get it pretty easily online for little to nothing for delivery. And prices are typically the same wherever you go, so it seems alright that way. I don't really have anything else to say about this one, so I'm just going to go straight into the ratings. The pricing, the value, I think is pretty good, so I'm going to give the value maybe about a 7, because it's cheap, but it's not the cheapest out of all of them. Editing Serena here. Obviously I've since googled how much Manic Panic actually is, and at $11.99, I don't think it's that great value for money. I always thought it was lower. I'll mention it later on about directions, but I tend to buy Manic Panic with like a bundle of 4, so that doesn't seem as expensive. But yeah, $11.99 is like what, £1? Well, actually I think that turns out more than Arctic Fox did when you do the conversion rates. So I don't think it's quite worth it, so I'm going to change my score to a 4 for the value for this one. Yeah, I really didn't know how much that was. But yeah, back to the video. The colour, all the colours that I've tried I've absolutely loved. Hot Pink is my go-to colour. It is just such a nice neon hot pink, and it is my favourite go-to. And I think as well, the one that I use is UV from them. Not this one, but the one I use from Manic Panic I think is a UV hair dye. So if you go out clubbing, your hair might be glowing. And they do have a lot of different UV ones, I'm pretty sure. So the colour I love, and I'm going to give that a 9 because it is one of my favourite hair dye colours out there. Longevity, Manic Panic lasts quite long, not as long as Arctic Fox. I think this maybe lasts about 4 to 5 weeks, depending on what you do. I personally, for Manic Panic or directions or whatever, I put some hair dye in with conditioner, and I'll put that in my hair whenever I'm actually washing it. I tend to wash my hair once or twice a week. wherever I can get away with it, so that helps with the longevity of it. And I also wash my hair in cold water, so if you're gonna wash your hair, I don't know, every 3 days or every 2 days with warm water, it's not gonna last as long. But if you wash it in cold water once or twice a week, maybe 3 times a week tops, and maybe when you're conditioning your hair, put some conditioner and dye together and use that instead, that'll help it last long. So with me doing that, it lasts me about 4 weeks. Pink though does fade a lot quicker than some other colours, and I know that, so take that into consideration. Some colours will last longer than others. That's just how it is, no matter what dye you use. So longevity, I'm going to give that about a 7 as well. I just feel like it lasts a while, but not as long as some other brands do. And for staining, I notice a little bit of staining, but it typically goes away after the first wash, so not when you first washed it out, but the next wash after that. So I'm going to give it maybe like a 3 on staining. 3.5 I think actually I'm going to give it on staining, because I do notice some staining, but not a lot. And again, I use this completely undiluted, I don't mix any conditioner in with it, so that's like the max pigment, and that's when you typically find a lot more staining, and I don't tend to have it a lot. It is just kind of like it stains my scalp a little bit, and like when it's freshly dyed, your fingers might get a little bit pink when you're running your hands through, but that's about it. The final dye I'm going to go on about is the dye that I currently have on my head, and that is from Lush Directions. I use the shade Flamingo Pink, and from them that's just kind of my favourite hot pink shades. Lush Directions, I believe, apart from Crazy Colour, because I can't remember the pricing of that, but you will already know, I would have already had it on the screen. I believe Lush Directions is the cheapest out of all of the dyes that I've spoken about today. I think they're normally about $4.99 a tub, depending on where you go, and then you can also get bulk deals where it's a little bit cheaper that way. A lot of the times what I do is when I'm on eBay or Amazon, I'll buy like a 4-pack of the dyes and I get it for about £13. So they are the cheapest ones out of all of them from what I know. With that though, with the cheapness of it, they don't last as long, and I do know that. I typically have to top this up a bit more. So for example, I dyed this when did I last dye it? Friday, not last week, but the week before that. So I don't know what day that was, but it's only been like 2 weeks since then. So yeah, I think it's been 2 weeks to the day that I've dyed my hair. What day is it today? Thursday. I don't know what day it is today. What day is it today? It's Friday today. Wow. I'm sure I said it in a different video that it's currently Wednesday and it's not. Or it's Tuesday, but it's not. Yeah, I think it's been 2 weeks to the day that I've dyed this. And I vlogged the day after I dyed my hair, I believe. Or I filmed the day after I dyed my hair. So I'll put like a screenshot or a picture of what my hair looked like then compared to now. And that's in the same lighting, the same camera and everything. So it does fade quite a bit quite quickly, and I've washed my hair only twice, I think, since then. So it does fade quite quickly, this dye. It fades nicely though, and honestly if I didn't have the purple-ish blue underneath, I reckon it would still be more pink than what it is. But yeah, this dye does fade quite a bit. It is cheap though, it is easy to use, and it's easy to get your hands on. Like Manic Panic, you can get it on most online shops, and the tattoo shop that I regularly go to, or the piercing shop, sells Lush Directions dye as well. And I believe they can actually send it out to you as well, so that's pretty decent. But yeah, by way of longevity, it's not that great. So let's go into the ratings. For value, it's great value for money, it is very cheap. So I'm going to give it, I think I'm going to give it a 9 for value, because it is very, very cheap. And it is easy to get your hands on as well, and typically most places would do like free delivery, like on Amazon and things like that, so very, very cheap. The colour, I love the colour of it. Obviously this is kind of the colour it stays more in my roots, ignore like that, but this is the colour that it really is. It just, the purple is because I had blue underneath. The colour I do love, it is a lot more like almost neon when you do dye it, but it does fade fairly quickly. So the colour I love, I'm going to give it maybe like a 8, just because it does fade very quickly, so I don't see the colour that I get for that long. Longevity, like I've said, it fades very quickly, so I'm actually going to give this the lowest score. I think about, what was my Crazy Colour score? I can't remember, I've already forgotten all this, I haven't written any of this down, I'm winging it as per usual. Longevity, I think I'm going to give this a 5, and I can't remember if this is higher or lower than the Crazy Colour one, whatever. But it doesn't last very long, and that's even with me washing it in cold water once or twice a week with the conditioner in with hair dye. so it doesn't last that great. That might also just be because of the fact that I have the purple in here, so I'm not seeing the pink as long as I would with other dyes, or if I didn't have this purpley bit. So it might be a bit of an unfair test, but I have always noticed that Lush Directions last a little bit less than any other dyes. And that's with me. I'm sure I used one of the blue hair dyes as well, and it didn't really last that long. It's just one of those dyes, I think, one of those brands that they're cheap, but they kind of interferes with the quality and the longevity. And finally, for staining, actually I don't notice any staining with this hair dye. When I obviously apply it, if I get some on my face, I'm going to have like a little bit of staining from that, like the back of my neck, but that actually comes off very easily with like a makeup wipe. I actually tend to use either like basic hand soap, obviously careful around your eyes, but I use hand soap to get it off, or sometimes I just use like a face wash, like a face scrub, and that tends to get it off quite well. The back of your neck, like I don't notice really any staining. On my ears I don't notice any staining. On pillows and stuff I really don't notice it at all. So this actually I don't think has basically any staining, and again I don't dilute my dyes. I have it from the tub onto my head. I only dilute it if I'm running a little bit low and I need to go a little bit further, and that's literally it. So staining, I'm actually going to give this like maybe a 2, because when you do wash it out, it could stain your bath slightly or your sink slightly, but with a bit of soap and water or like just a general cleaning spray, it can come off. But by way of like staining my hands and my fingers, I mean the last couple of times I've dyed my hair I haven't used gloves and it washed off my hands by the next day. So yeah, staining for this hair dye in particular is little to none, and I quite appreciate that. Probably it's because it doesn't last that long by pigment wise, so it washes out very easily. But hey, that's sometimes not a bad thing. So yeah, that is my opinion on a few different hair dye brands and my reviews. I can't wait to edit this video and have it like 25 minutes long with just me rambling on about Arctic Fox and the long delivery time. But yeah, that's my opinion on these brands and these dyes. If you're maybe thinking of dyeing your hair bright colours and you're not sure what brand to go for, I hope this has kind of helped you make up your mind a little bit more. Just remember though that different colours will act differently by way of staining, how long it lasts. Blue, for example, tends to last quite long. It's quite a low maintenance colour because of the fact that it stains quite a lot, like to your hair, but because of that it also stains quite a bit on pillowcases, boyfriends, hands, necks, things like that. But it does last quite a while. Red I've used before, and honestly red isn't a long lasting colour either really. It's a lot of maintenance for reds, and pink isn't that long lasting, things like that. So different colours will last different amounts of time, and it depends on how you use it as well, whether you dilute it or not. That'll also change, and how you care for your hair. So again, if you wash it in warm water regularly, your hair colour is going to fall out a lot quicker than if you did it with cold water very unregularly. So just take that into consideration as well when you are looking into what hair dyes you want to use, or check reviews. So yeah, anyway, I hope that this has helped you if you are kind of considering dyeing your hair and you're just not sure where to go and what brands to use and what colours to go for. I hope this has kind of helped. In the comments, please let me know, what's your favourite hair colour you've ever been? I've probably asked this before in my last video about hair dye, but I can't remember what I asked, and I don't think anyone told me either. So please tell me what is the favourite colour you've ever been for your hair. It can be natural or unnatural, whatever, just what's your favourite colour. Mine obviously is pink, because hot pink is my life. I'm actually filming 2 videos in a row today, so if you want to know how I got this eye look and what this is all about, this video, or that video, will be up on Wednesday next week. So keep your eyes peeled for that video. But because of that, it means I don't have a comment shout out because I'm pre-filming, so what can you do? I'm just going to shout out a random subscriber. So today I'm going to shout out Kirsty. Thanks for being a subscriber, thanks for watching my videos, I really appreciate you and I love having you here. If you want to be shouted out in a video, all you need to do is be the first person to comment on my video. It can be my new video, or if you're watching an old video and you said there's no comments on it yet, you can literally comment on that one, and I see every single comment and I look at every single comment and read them all. So I'll catch it. So if I notice that you've commented on a video that's had no comments beforehand, I'll shout you out in a video. So yeah, just be the first one to comment on one of my videos, and that automatically gets you a shout out. But yeah, so if you like this video and you want to see more content about hair and hair dye and colours and things like that, please leave me a like, because it really helps me know if you like this sort of content. And if you want to stick around and watch my journey on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. If you put the notification bell on as well, you get told whenever I make a video. I upload videos every Wednesday and Sunday. I forgot my own routine there. And on every first Thursday of every month, I put up a different video, which is a little TBT series where I do an old challenge that was trending ages ago and I just bring it back to the now. So yeah, that is all from me today, guys. I really hope you have a lovely day. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.